Maybe it is. All right. Yep, looks like we're good. So, all right. I don't think there was anything I was going to ask you guys before we started, but yeah. All right, here we go. Hi, and thanks for downloading this episode of the IVMB podcast. It is brought to you by all of the listeners who support IVMB on Patreon. Well, the Cubs started the season on the road, and in 9 games... Hey, guys, I'm going to push record this time.
Let's listen to some music.
You know what I realized in listening to this? I just pushed it earlier and then listened to it, is that I think that's me playing bass on this song. I'm not positive, but I think it is.
It's funny that you don't remember.
Well, I don't. No, I played bass on this song. I just don't know if I was on this recording.
Oh.
I always thought the bass sucked on this song.
Okay, it's about ready to stop, and then we can go again. Live viewers are getting the behind the scenes. Corey forgetting to push record. All right, here we go. All right, let's try it again. Hi, and thanks for downloading this episode of the IVMB podcast. It is brought to you by all of the listeners who support IVMB on Patreon. Well, the Cubs started the season on the road, and in 9 games, they went 2-7. We saw some signs of life in this series in Milwaukee, although the Cubs lost the series 2-1. On this episode, we'll talk about the series in Milwaukee, talk about where the team stands, and share if we have some optimism for this 2019 season based on what we saw in that series. So I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Corey, and I am joined on this episode by the other 2 hosts of this podcast.
Hey, it's Andy.
And Kurt.
So before we get started, Monday is the home opener, and I will be in Chicago. I won't be going to the game, but I'll be at G-Man. And if you're in the neighborhood and not going to the game, you're welcome to come to G-Man and hang out with the group there. And also, Danny Rocket's Bleacher Bum Band is playing at the G-Man after the game. So if you're at the game, then go ahead and swing by G-Man after the game is over and listen to some music before you head home. Let the traffic clear out, right? That's what I do. I go and eat pizza and wait for the traffic to clear out.
Old guy move.
Yeah. You either got to like leave early to beat the rush, or did you guys were your dads beat the rush kind of guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Beat the rush so badly you left halfway through whatever it is that you were watching.
That's the third inning, and we got to get out of here.
Church is halfway over, and you got to leave before communion to beat the rush.
My dad is a beat the rush kind of guy. Well, except for when it comes to Notre Dame football. He will not leave a Notre Dame football game early. And I remember sitting through a bowl game in Arizona, and Notre Dame was just getting destroyed. They didn't even have they didn't have a coach at the time. Like, the coach had been fired. I think it was after Willingham had been fired. And he made us sit through the entire thing. Would not let us, even 5 minutes early, because you never know. You could miss an incredible comeback.
But he wasn't going to wait in church to see if Jesus came back.
All right. So, Kurt, you got a scary stat for us?
Yeah, I've got one for you. So in his 4th season as a Cub, Jason Hayward, I think we can call this the Jason Hayward game, finally had his first multi-homer game on Saturday. And he didn't just stop at the
God, I did not push record again.
Oh, shit. Well, we had some good stuff in there.
Gosh. I got all distracted about playing bass.
He was playing air bass and stuff. I was supposed to do something, and he just starts slapping the air bass.
There's no way. Yeah, we can't replicate that opener.
gosh. Well, I went ahead and pushed record, so I don't have to worry about forgetting it this time.
This is vintage.
Okay, wait a minute though. You know what? I will pull it from YouTube. I'll pull it.
Are you sure?
Yep.
That's gonna work.
Yeah, it'll work. So just pick up at your scary stat, and then I'll splice it all together. Good Lord. Ridiculous. I don't even want to look at the chat right now. All right. Go ahead, Kurt. I'm sorry.
All right. So in his fourth season as a Cub, Jason Hayward had his first multi-homer game on Saturday. I think it's safe to call this game the Jason Hayward game, the one we've been waiting for. But he didn't just stop at the 2 home runs. He reached base 5 times. He walked twice, got a single, and he stole 2 bases. And the interesting thing about this stat line is that he's the only Cub in history to have 2 home runs, 2 walks, and 2 stolen bases in a game. And he's only the 3rd player in Major League Baseball history to have that stat line, which was a little surprising. So this is more rare than the coveted cycle. So good job, Jason Hayward. But, digging a little deeper in kind of looking back at his home run milestones, his first home run came against the Cubs off of Carlos Zambrano in 2010. His first multi-home run game was also in 2010 against, any guesses? The Cubs.
I kind of feel like I know where this is going.
Yeah. The first one came off of Randy Wells, the second off Marcos Mateo. So that was his first multi-home run game. Since then, he has, in his career, he had, before this one, had 6 multi-home run games. He had at least 1 per year from 2012 to 2015, and this is his first as a Cub in his 4th season. So nice to see him break out of that.
Yeah, get back onto the 1 every year thing.
Yeah. I just think it's great because, like, I feel like this is the most optimistic we have been about Jason Hayward, kind of. And this is after the last episode. We basically just wrote like, well, yep, I guess that didn't work out. And we were just kind of like lamenting, I guess, how poorly that acquisition went and feeling bad for him, too, as a player. I mean, and then next thing you know, he just goes off. So, hey, who do we want?
He did follow it up with an 0 for 3 today. So,
yeah.
It's not like he's totally on fire.
Can we write off? I feel like we've done a pretty good job of writing off the bullpen, and that hasn't paid off. So I guess it was just a fluke.
Oh, man.
So I guess let's kind of dig into this Brewers series. My question to you guys is, do you feel that this series, and maybe the 1 win, but just this series in general, did it calm you at all? After the other 6 games of the season?
I kind of thought about this game after just the win yesterday before today's game. And I was thinking the win that's going to calm me down is still coming. I'm looking for a win where the team is dominant in both pitching and hitting. And I need a string of games like that to feel better.
Yeah, isn't it? Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
It's kind of strange that, like, basically what you're looking for is you're looking for the Cubs to win a 1-0 game or a couple of 2-1 games, and that's going to make you feel better than the Cubs scoring 14 runs.
I mean, a 1-0 game doesn't feel great either, but it feels a lot better than a ton of runs and a loss. But I'd like to see him, put up like 4 or 5 and win, and hold the other team to 1 or 2. That's what I'm looking for, a few games like that. I honestly wouldn't have been that surprised if the Cubs had been swept, but I guess I wouldn't have been surprised had they taken 2 out of 3. I think maybe having a stretch of home games coming up could cure what ails them at this point.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with Andy. Like, I'm still waiting for that complete win. And I mean, I can just the 14 run win. I mean, you should win that game. Like, you have to win every game. You score 14 runs, you have to win. And we just haven't seen that complete game where We've had the pitching, we've had the offense. We haven't even seen like a defensive performance that we felt like, at least the defense kept us in it for the offense to come around later, and we just haven't seen any of that yet. And so I'm still, just like Andy said, I'm kind of waiting for that to happen, and so I'm not really super calm yet. I'm still pretty concerned. I know it is coming, but it's just kind of hard to tamp down the worrying. But
it's just tough to start a season on that note, and to see it for a fairly extended period of time. But as far as this Brewers series goes, it did actually kind of calm me some, even though the Cubs lost the series. I was really kind of expecting a sweep. I expected them to get swept. So in one way, I was like, oh, they took one. Nice. That's not quite so bad. And, the Cubs did have a good win in there with a good offensive production. And as I was watching today's game, I was sitting here like trying to think, okay, how, thinking about preparing for this episode and everything. And I thought, this game today calmed me because it felt like a normal game. And then right when I was thinking that, no joke, Lynn Casper said, this game feels normal. And I was like, yeah, yes, it does. It felt like it didn't feel as weird as all of the other games we've seen this year. Either like,
man, I wish I would have been able to hear Len Casper. I heard just radio for the all the games really, and they kept going on and on about the radio. It's more like the Bears and the Packers.
I heard that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So anyway,
yeah. So like, but that is kind of like today felt like the most normal game of the season so far, I think. And so losing today didn't really bother me because it just felt like a normal loss. It felt typical. And, neither team scored a boatload of runs. The Cubs bullpen pitched well enough. Council decided to use Hader for 3 innings, or I guess technically 2 2/3. But I mean, it just felt like a normal game. And it didn't feel as like Twilight Zone-y as all of the other games that we've experienced this season.
That's a cool adjective.
And like, so another thought I had was, and this was like during Saturday's game, I realized that it feels to me like the Cubs offense is playing against their own pitching instead of against the other team. That the goal is to score so many runs their bullpen or their starters, the pitching, doesn't blow the game. And I think that these offensive explosions are fun. It's great to see early in the season. Think about how many years passed. It's like the Cubs offense is kind of sputtered in April, and we've blamed it on cold weather. And I mean, it's nice that like really they haven't had to deal with bad weather yet, although I think that's coming up this week. But so it's been kind of enjoyable to see the offense click like it has. And it's great, like you mentioned, Kurt, it's great to see it happening with players like Jason Hayward or Wilson Contreras and what he's doing right now. And those offensive explosions are fun, but it doesn't feel like it's sustainable. And I didn't see anything from pitching in this series really to remove my concerns. I mean, I think Hendricks' performance was kind of a mixed bag, I think, but Friday night it was the Quintana implosion. Saturday night the bullpen was ugly, and I just felt like it was kind of more of the same as far as what we've seen so far this year. And really just, I think that the Cubs were pretty lucky to give up 25 runs in a series and take one of those games.
Well, yeah, because they scored probably. I don't even remember what the totals were, but close to that much. 20.
But it's not. But typically, if you give up 25 runs in a series, you probably got swept.
It's true.
So yeah, I mean, I was kind of go into the offense's continued success. The Cubs have put up 62 runs through 9 games, and that is an obscene number. I was kind of curious, historically, how that compares to other seasons, through 9 games. What would you guess for 2016? Would you say they probably got more or less than 62 runs through 9 games?
Well, 2016 is the season that they started off didn't they
Right.
go, I don't know, 23-7 or something like that?
Yeah,
But I don't remember.
In the first 9, they'd won most of those.
I don't remember exactly how they were winning, though.
They had 64 runs through 9 games in 2016. So basically, the 2019 Cubs have scored just about the same number of runs as the 2016 Cubs. The difference is the 2016 Cubs pitching staff only surrendered 20 runs through 9 games, and the Cubs pitching staff in 2019 has surrendered 71 runs.
Oof. Ouch.
So, but this over 60 runs is, I went back through every team since 1998, and no other teams outside of 2016 and 2019 have really come that close. 2006 they put 58 up through 9 games, but yeah, even the good years, 2003, 1998, they were only in the 50s. But the difference in those really successful years, is that the pitching staff was able to do their job a little bit more effectively than this year's club has done. But prior to today's game, they were first in the MLB in average and on base percentage, 307 and 399 respectively. They were third in base and on walk percentage, WAR, and weighted runs created plus. But they're also first in the MLB in BABIP, which I think you talked about last episode, Corey. So we would expect some of this to come back down to earth. But the crazy part is they're piling up all these runs without Bryant showing up too much. I mean, really, Bryant, Baez, Schwarber, or Rizzo, they haven't really done what they're fully capable of. Although those names do account for 24 of the runs driven in, but it's not like they haven't contributed at all. I mean, Rizzo is getting on base at a near 400 level clip. Javi has 4 home runs. Bryant just hasn't really gotten on track. Bryant has a 687 OPS right now. So, I mean, imagine had he gotten off to a really hot start, what their totals would be right now. It's already obscene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's you feel like, how long can the offense keep this up? Somebody said you don't expect this to be sustainable, but then if it's not sustainable and the pitching doesn't turn around, then they're really screwed.
Right.
And
yeah.
that's where my brain goes, and that's kind of where my worry is.
Yeah. So,
but even if this kind of tapers off and then the pitching trends upward, then it'll kind of equalize a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, that the offense can't continue to put up runs like they are, but you hope, you hope that the
pitching normalizes. Yeah, I mean, 71 runs.
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So, let me talk about the bullpen just for a second. And I think we knew if the bullpen continued to perform the way that they were, there were going to be some changes coming sooner or later. I mean, I think it was just inevitable. So Mike Montgomery was put on the injured list, and Carl Edwards Jr. was sent down to Iowa. I really think that Carl needed to go to Iowa. I think it was pretty clear that he wasn't going to figure things out by just continuing to throw him out there. And I don't think it's doing him any good if you're also not using him because he's not being effective. So I just felt like the best place for him was to go to Iowa. And really, I don't think there should be any rush to bring him back up. I guess I kind of look at it this way. He has no more minor league options after this year. The way things stand.
After this one, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's something... I don't have the details in front of me. I think he needed to be sent, if they were going to send him to Iowa and use that option, it had to be done before June something or other. So I think they can, I just think that there should be no rush to bring him up. Just leave him down there and let him work and fix things and let the results be on display for a good amount of time. Like, let it be clear that he has figured things out. Not like, oh, he had good 2 appearances and the bullpen still kind of sucks, so we're going to pull him up.
Yeah. That makes sense. And, maybe there's a mechanical tweak that's not like setting your foot down completely.
Right.
Is a non-illegal mechanical tweak?
Maybe there's a mechanical tweak that's a little more subtle, subtler that he could implement.
Yeah. And so, I mean,
nothing. Just throw the ball like you.
Well, I just don't think
I got a tweak for you. Throw the ball like you used to.
Bench him.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Yeah. I just what's the point in bringing him up and having him go through another meltdown? Because at this point, it kind of feels like Carl Edwards Jr.'s career can't handle too many more of those meltdowns. And watching him come off the mound that last time, I just felt so bad for him. I mean, he literally looked like he was about to cry. I mean, I just can't imagine what it's like to go through that. And so I think, like, yes, the mechanics or whatever it is that's causing him to not be able to find the strike zone, like that's one thing that needs to get fixed. But I think his confidence also needs to get fixed. And that's what's going to take an amount of time, because, I mean, Carl Edwards Jr. has looked really good for stretches, and that confidence, it feels like, has always kind of like been just teetering there. And it doesn't take much for him to lose that confidence. So, and
that last outing was a tough spot too, because it was rainy and it was wet, and like in any other circumstance, you just say, well, he had a bad outing because it was wet, but piled on top of what he's gone through, it just looks like another bad outing for him. So I'm totally with you. I think this is the right move. It's what he needs. It's what the Cubs need, and yeah, he needs to work it out there. Otherwise, nope, it's not good for him to just get beaten up.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe our buddy John Baker can spend some time with him and help him get in the right mindset. And but yeah, I think
get him barefoot for a while.
I mean, I feel like Des Moines and the Pacific Coast League is what Carl needs right now. And I'm definitely not I think there's been a lot of people calling for him to be sent down, all the time throughout his career. I'm not a big, sending, I don't really see minor league assignments as punishment, but more of like an opportunity. And that's how I kind of see it with Carl. I mean, it's not like, well, hey, you blew these, so go ride the bus, or
walk home from Milwaukee.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just, I just feel like it really is an opportunity for him to try to get things back on track. So the Montgomery and Edwards Jr. moves made room for 2 relievers from Iowa. And I've been told all week on Twitter that the Cubs just needed to bring up relievers from Iowa. They're young, they're hungry. That would fix the problem. And the Cubs did that. It didn't work out so well Saturday night. So the Cubs called up Kyle Ryan and Alan Webster, 2 guys with 4 first names between the 2 of them. So they got that going for them.
You know what? While you're talking here, I'll look them up and see what their middle names are too.
Oh, well, it makes sense that they would be first names.
They're both John.
So Ryan went 2/3 of an inning, and he was charged with 2 runs. Webster recorded a third of an inning, and he was charged with a run. And then to put a cherry on top, Rosario came in and gave up 3 earned runs in 1 inning.
Is that a cherry?
Yeah. Yep. So it was a Rosario cherry. It was nice that the offense put that game out of reach, and it wasn't a tight game. So, will dipping into the minors solve the bullpen problem? I don't know. I don't know if it will. Both Ryan and Webster pitched okay in Sunday's game, so maybe the Cubs can kind of build on that going forward, coming back home. So I don't know, but I made the mistake of looking at playoff odds, guys.
Oh no.
Well, I saw a pretty scary stat about it.
Yeah. So right now, after Sunday's game, 538 gives the Cubs a 24% chance of making the playoffs.
Why would you do this to us?
A 14% chance of winning the division. 14%.
Wait, 24 to make the playoffs? I think it was 40 something a couple days ago.
No, it was. I've been looking at it. Not 538. I mean, maybe a different site. But
I had just seen that the Cubs had suffered the greatest drop in playoff odds since the season started, like a ridiculous drop.
Well, maybe
and the Brewers have had the greatest increase.
Of course they have. So yeah, 2% chance of winning the World Series, and it projects a final record of 80-82. So
better than Pacoda.
So I think we're a ways off from seeing the Cubs go on like one of those easy like 6 or 8 game winning streaks where they can just kind of like cruise along. And to me, and I'm wondering if you guys feel the same thing, it just feels like it's going to be a dogfight for them to win games here over the next stretch. And, they're not going to be able to score 10 or 12 runs a game. We're going to see a lot of games, I think, like today. We're going to see a lot more games in cold weather too. And we know how that, that impacts it too. But I think we're going to see more 4-2 games or whatever than 10, 12, 14 runs a game. And I think those are the games that the Cubs need to win. Like you said, Andy, they need to win those tight games. And I think when the pitching keeps things in reach, the offense is going to need to step up and score runs and manufacture runs however they do.
Yeah, and hopefully the timing all works out where, when the pitching is a little suspect, then the offense shows up. And then when the pitching is dominant, maybe that's on days when the offense isn't so great. And we all know that is just not something you can count on. That's just not how baseball works. But it's what they need right now because,
It's not like you're setting up like a sing-songy like adage, like when the Cubs pitching is suspect, you're gonna get wrecked. When the Cubs is dominant, the front end phenomenal.
Andy, you know what else? Andy, you know what else starts with C?
What?
There is nobody listening that gets that joke. That is a deep cut right there.
We should offer a prize for anybody who gets that one.
If somebody knows the words that start with C joke, then maybe we should explain that joke. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think we should just let it lie.
Man. Gosh, that was when. Well, someone crashed our podcast recording and went on a strange tangent.
Roofing and all that kind of stuff.
I saw him today.
Oh, no.
Perfect.
I'd be happy if I never saw him again. He may listen. I don't care. I don't like you.
Well, that's out there.
He knows. Trust me.
Well, should we talk about Theo?
Oh yeah, let's talk about Theo.
Well, Theo in one of his pressers said he had some comments around the start of the season, and his quote was that Tom Ricketts is not the problem. It's not a resource issue. If people have a problem with the allocation of resources, that's me. So essentially, he took the blame. He put it on his shoulders and kind of apologized and said this is all on him, which I understand why he's doing that. He's trying to shoulder some of that blame, and I do actually think there's truth to it because some of these deals haven't worked out. But I think for every bad deal, there's been a good deal, and so I think the blame is equally spread around for Ricketts, for him, for the players. But at this point, with this kind of start, I don't think anybody could. We all wanted more to happen in the offseason, but I don't think any of us would argue that this team isn't talented enough or isn't good enough on paper to win more games than they have. So I do think that most of this falls to the players and maybe even the coaching staff. But I guess I kind of appreciate what Theo's doing and taking it on himself and saying this is my fault and we need to do better. But so yeah, that's what you want to hear him say. But at the end of the day, this is about the players playing because I don't think any of us are going to sit here and argue that Theo hasn't done. He could do it. Like I think we would say he could have done better in certain situations, but none of us would say he hasn't done the job of putting good players on the field. And making them a better team. So yeah, I don't think he's without fault, but I don't think he has deserved all of the blame.
No, and I understand, like, what he was probably saying, that, they've had some acquisitions that haven't gone like they expected. Yeah, there's those things. But, like, I mean, if I'm looking at what has been the issue in the first week and a half of this season, and I'm looking at the bullpen, I don't really understand, unless Theo and Jed decided, nope, this bullpen we don't need anybody else. What we have is going to be good. I don't see. I mean, I just don't think that's the case, especially when we were hearing that, like, they had to, like, clear, payroll to make different moves this offseason, and that, like, certain players were out of their price range, like, relief pitchers were out of their price range. I mean, that's fine that Theo's, like, kind of taking the blame for it, but I still think that, like, I don't see how this is not on ownership and anybody that said how money should be spent or how much money should be spent. I mean, I appreciate what Theo did, but
right. But you can look at it and say, well, yeah, Theo blew it last year, and now he had nothing left to spend this year. And so while it may look like,
but let's not forget that they said give him the. But let's not forget that they said that the Darvish signing would not impact future free agency considerations. So, I mean, we don't need to get back into all that, but yeah. And so I guess, like, I appreciate that Theo's doing that. I think it's more to take the heat off of maybe players and Joe than.
Well, he even said in the comment too about, like, Ricketts is taking a lot of heat or a lot of blame here or something like that. And it's like, well, again, like you're saying, like, I appreciate you saying that, but yeah, he deserves it. Let him take it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it should be equally spread around here. It's just unacceptable what's happening now.
And all we can really do is speculate. We don't exactly know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think we've learned enough about the state of MLB ownership to have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But that's a whole nother episode.
In a shocking turn of events, Alan Webster, Alan is actually his middle name.
Oh.
His first name is Carl. So Carl Allen Webster, or Caw for short.
So do you have a first name total update?
And so 5, because Kyle Ryan, most players, he might be an only 2 name person, from what I can tell, but either that or his middle name is unlisted. So 5 middle names between the 2.
Yeah.
Or 5 first names. Is it 5 middle names?
Well, technically, you're right with that, too.
Yeah,
All right. So the Pirates come to Wrigley for the home opener series, and it's April, and it's Chicago. So before we get into the details on these games, let me play the Tom Skilling role for a second. This is shaping up to be an ugly series weather-wise. So Monday, it appears, will be beautiful. No rain, high of 66. That's gorgeous. Then there's an off day on Tuesday. Wednesday has a 100% chance of rain with a high of 40. But this is a night game, so there's an 80% chance of rain Wednesday night and a low of 39. So I love those days where it's like a high of 40 and a low of 39. I mean, I don't love. No, trust me, I don't love those days, but I get a kick out of them, I guess. I don't know.
What if they could get somehow just play on Tuesday instead of one of these?
Right. Well, so then, like, okay, so Thursday, it's not any better. It's a 90% chance of rain on Thursday night. Temperatures in the 40s, and the winds will be 15 to 25 miles per hour. So I agree with you, Andy. We have the science. We know what the weather's going to be.
We have the science.
Science is we all know that.
We know a pocket full of science right here. I can get you science by 3:00 this afternoon.
We know what the weather will be. And so, that off day on Tuesday is there for weather in case Monday gets rained out. So Monday won't be rained out, but Wednesday and or Thursday will be. So how about they just attempt to play on Tuesday? I
guess there's some like CBA thing that doesn't allow them to do that.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is like there are a lot of logistics to consider on top of like, I mean, you figure the two teams are already in town, the umpires are in town, you would seemingly be able to do that. What would throw everything off is like think about all the logistics to make Wrigley work. You know, all of the people who work. A lot of people I think work a couple of jobs, and so you know it's not fair to expect them to basically be on call for 42,000 people. Or let's be honest, it'll probably be a lot fewer than that. But yeah, I don't know. It just I guess the one positive is that it's an in-division opponent, and so there will be opportunities to make these games up.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it's just I don't know. I would like to see them use those scheduled days off in that manner, like or put that off day on. Let them play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then put that off day on Thursday. And then if any of the first three games are rained out, I don't know why you put that one game on Tuesday in case Monday is rained out.
Yeah, early season too.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
right.
You know, you can handle the schedule a little bit differently, you know, when you get midsummer or something, but.
Right. Yeah. So let's look at these games, and we'll start with Monday.
Yeah, that's a 1:20 start. That's on ABC 7. Everybody's favorite location on which to watch the Cubs. It's going to be righty.
It is mine because I get them over the air.
I know, I do too, actually. You got righty Jamison Tyone versus John Lester in that game. So, Tyone has given the Cubs trouble in the past, but he's also looked very hittable in some games, some starts against the Cubs. He gave up 4 to the Reds in his first start this season. But he held the Cardinals to 1 run on 3 hits over 7 innings in his second start. So his second start, he looked pretty sharp. Now, the Cubs have hit him in the past, in particular Baez and Rizzo. Baez is hitting .579 and 19 at-bats versus Tyone and has 2 homers. So look for, I don't know, keep an eye on the Baez versus Tyone battles tomorrow. And Rizzo also is hitting .450 and 20 at-bats versus Tyone and has 2 home runs as well. So they have players who have really gotten to Tyone before, and you know, that's got to be in his head as he approaches them tomorrow. We also have Lester going for the Cubs, and no Pirates have done particularly well against Lester, although Cervelli has 2 home runs against him. Starling Marte has 38 at-bats versus Lester, and that's the most on the Pirates, and is hitting .211. So actually, most of these Pirate hitters, Lester's done pretty well against. So I think this is a chance for the pitching to really put a low number on the board tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, never mind. I was going to start like making predictions, and no, I'm not even going there.
Just leave it alone. Let's just stick with the facts.
But you know,
the science, if you will.
Well, I just feel like this is. I think that coming back to Wrigley is maybe just what the Cubs need, and I think that like just game 1, John Lester going to the mound, facing a pitcher that they've had some success against. I just think like it's just time to get down to business and take care of them, you know?
Yeah.
So then Tuesday is an off day.
Well, yeah, Tuesday's off. I thought you were about to say Tuesday's game.
No, it's off. So Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing better than night games at Wrigley in April. So
yeah, this will be the first home night game. It'll be Yu Darvish against Jordan Lyles, and I think if maybe if you're an optimist, you think Darvish he looked better in the second start than he did in his first, so maybe he'll build on that. And this isn't, the Pirates lineup isn't bad. I wouldn't call them bad, but it's not, the most amazing lineup, and there's some trouble there, but perhaps a chance for him to gain some momentum, have a good outing. So yeah, that's your optimistic view of Darvish, and I hope that happens. And they'll be facing Lyles, and this is his first season as a Pirate, and he had a pretty good start in his debut. He went 5 and allowed just 3 hits and no runs, And the Cubs lineup has really limited at-bats against him, so there's not a lot of things to go on there. But Rizzo is 0 for 7. Javi is 1 for 6. So, really small samples, but not success. And Descalso's the only guy who's had any amount of success. He's 2 for 7 with a home run. But again, nothing to really dig into there. On the other side...
Isn't one Lyle enough? And this guy has the audacity to bring multiple Lyles into the situation. All right, proceed.
Yep, that's it. So yeah, on the other side, most of the Pirates have not faced Darvish. Cervelli is the only guy with any amount of at-bats, and he's 4 for 7 against Darvish. So yeah, there's just nothing here. But this game will be on WGN at 7:05. So yeah, that's it. There's Wednesday.
All right. So Thursday, it's another night game. 7:05 start, and it's televised on NBC Sports Chicago. And if you are outside of the region, I guess regions, including the Pirates region, then you can watch it on the MLB network. And this is a Joe Musgrove versus Quintana. So I don't think they've officially announced Quintana yet, but maybe they have. But I mean, it just seems I think that's who would be starting. So Musgrove, he's a 26-year-old righty. He faced the Cubs twice last season, and he held them to 1 run in 7 innings in both games. As a team, the Cubs are hitting 183 off him. They have an OBP of 279, and they're slugging 317. So not a lot of success there. In small samples, Contreras and Hayward have both done okay against him, and those are two guys that are hitting the ball really well right now, so it'd be good to see them do well. And Bryant and Zobrist have homered off of Musgrove. Nothing really stands out about how Quintana has done against the Pirates. He faced them twice last year. Corey Dickerson is the only batter with more than 10 at-bats who has done well off of him. But the highlight for me, the highlight of the series, is that we get to see our old buddy, former Indians outfielder, Lonnie Chisenhall this week.
Oh, yeah, Lonnie.
Yep, Lonald. So I'll be looking forward to Lonald coming back to Wrigley for a series.
Can't get enough Lonald.
Be nice to see the Cubs take advantage of his stellar defense out there. So really, I just, like I kind of said, overall, I think it's been a really strange start to the season, and this is where the Cubs need to just stop the bleeding and just get back into their swanky clubhouse. The victory dance party room is ready to go. The fans need it, and the Pirates just aren't a terribly strong team. So I just think, like, okay, that last road trip, strange start to the season, clean slate. Let's just kind of like get down to it and start winning some ball games and chip away at that lead that the Brewers has, because you don't want that to. We don't want. I don't know. It could be disastrous if we continue at this rate. So let's try to even things back up with the top of the division and kind of start from scratch. So, you guys have anything else you want to say before we end this thing?
I was trying to think of any other.
I just didn't know if we skipped over anything.
No.
Yeah. Okay. And when obviously, like, I wish, there are a lot of, especially at this point in the season, there are a lot of different directions you can take a conversation. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, but I do think it's worth like noting that like Contreras looks really good, and at the plate especially. And so it's good to see him after, his second half last year. It's really good to see him start the season strong. And Caratini seems to be doing pretty well too, and maybe that would give Madden a little bit of comfort in giving Contreras the rest that he needs. So, all right. So Ivy Miscellany, what other things outside of watching or listening to the Cubs are you into right now?
There's nothing else. The Cubs is.
There better be something else right now.
That is all.
I'm yoked to the Cubs.
What do you got, Kurt?
Well, I went to a show last night in East Moline, Illinois, to see Bon Iver at the Rust Belt, which I quite enjoyed, and actually ran into Michael from Galesburg and his lovely wife, and so that was kind of cool, for a hermit to be out in the public and see someone maybe feel pretty good, and I don't know. I enjoyed the show.
I don't think you should call Michael a hermit.
Yeah,
behind his back.
Well, he's not. He's forced to be in public, but I'm not. So, no, I enjoyed the show. I'm not gonna rave too much, but I did like it, and it was cool to be out.
Nice. How about you, Andy?
I guess there's a lot of music apps. I've talked about music apps before on my phone. I mean, on your, for your phone. And I got this one that's called Bloom, and it's made by Brian Eno.
Oh.
And it's like Brian Eno and one other guy named, I think, Peter Chilvers. But it's like a generative music app, so you can either have total control over like what it's doing, or you can kind of set it going and it will generate music based on what you've done already. So it's kind of an interesting little like synth type thing, or you just kind of tap in different places to make different pitched sounds. So it's actually pretty relaxing. Like if you're into kind of conscious relaxation or mindfulness type things, I think it could serve you well in those ways too. But anyway, it's called Bloom, and then there's some other ones that he's done too that are fairly similar.
Interesting. I don't have anything great. I feel like I haven't had anything great for Ivy Miscellany for a while. Although, how about it was a beautiful weekend. And it was so relaxing to get outside and do yard work, and we did a ton of yard work over the weekend because we had quite a mess to clean up. Man, the winter was just brutal on our property.
Yeah.
There were limbs everywhere,
breaking stuff down, and
but it was just so nice to get outside, and so I don't know. I guess that's my Ivy Miscellany. Go out if there is a nice day, go outside, because it just feels so great to get I don't know, not have a ceiling. I don't know.
I know.
It just feels so good to not be in front of a screen and not, especially as somebody, I mean, Kurt, I think you can kind of relate to this. When I work, I'm in front of a computer constantly, and it's just so nice to get outside. I don't know. It was nice. I'm super sore today, but just to get dirty and clean things up and be able to show for something afterwards, oh, that was a mess and now it's not. I just does something for your psyche, I think.
Yeah. So I got a little hammock time.
Oh, nice.
So that was nice. That's what I do when the weather's nice. Corey's like, I'm going to get some work done. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go lay in a hammock and do nothing. And it's beautiful.
It's nice. So we live out in the country. It's nice when today 3 people stopped by our house just to chat about the weather.
That's country living. Right
I know.
there.
I know. It was great.
Nice.
All right. So,
well, I started to kind of make fun of you for your suggestion, and now I think it's amazing.
Yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah, eat it, Andy.
Yeah, I think I will go eat it.
All right, so that will do it for this episode. It was brought to you by all of the listeners who support this podcast on Patreon. We have 2 new supporters to thank this week. First, Benjamin. And Benjamin doesn't provide his hometown, so I can't do a little fun fact for him, which may be why he didn't provide that information, because he didn't want me to dig into and give some boring fun fact, quote-unquote fun fact about his town. But, okay, so then we have Jeremy. And I don't know if you guys can see the notes there. I don't exactly know how to pronounce this. Is it maybe Procious, West Virginia? I don't know.
That looks right. It's like Precious, but with an O.
Right. Yeah. So Jeremy, he came to our Milwaukee tailgate last year, but Procious, it's an unincorporated area, basically right in the middle of West Virginia, and I got nothing on Procious, and I would assume Jeremy would understand. It would be like if somebody said something about where I live and be like, yep, got nothing. I get it. So out of curiosity, I did like the Google satellite thing, and it is just like a handful of houses along a river, and they have a post office, and that's basically it. Although I did see that the first postmaster named the town after himself. So his name was Procius, so he named the town after himself. So that's all I got. Sorry, Jeremy.
Nice. Sounds like where I grew up.
So thanks for your support, Jeremy and Benjamin, and thank you for listening. We'll be back probably on Thursday to discuss this Pirates series. And until then, go Cubs. All right. Cool.
All right.
Well, I guess that's it.
Yes, so.
So, I'm going to stop the broadcast.
The title should be something about I
wrote a couple.
The science one.
Oh.
We've got the science.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
What is it? I kind of wrote it down. Yeah, I think I can't read my own handwriting. The other thing I wrote was, he may listen. I don't like you.
I wrote down Rosario Cherry.
Yeah.
But I like the other ones better.
We could do We Got the Science. We've got the science. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. And I got to try to figure out how to get the first 8 minutes of this episode now. So
I hope that works. You can call us at midnight and we'll hop back on and re-record.
Do we need to just redo it? Do you want to just redo it now?
No, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
I'll figure it out. I just have to replay it from YouTube or Facebook or something and record that. So
okay.
I got it. All right, cool. I'm going to end the broadcast.
Okay, yeah, please. I want to